Starting off today, important trip today. It's a Friday morning. I'm in Corvallis and I'm about to get on my bicycle and go south. I'm kind of going to go fast today, so I might not have time, at least at first, to stop and say where I'm going. So might be a while until an update. I'm in Greenberry. As is often the case, I'm just taking a little break here before I go south. And I'm making good time today. It's 10 minutes after 11 a.m. For me, that's early. And I have to go a little bit faster because I'm going further, but not trying to exhaust myself. So I need a little caffeine and hydration break, and then continuing this way. This is the road to the Findlay National Wildlife Refuge, where I've been before and where I am not going today. I'm continuing south. One thing to mention, two things to mention, but first, because I'm going south, the Willamette Valley is going upward at this point, so I do feel it in my legs a little bit that this road is going slightly upward. I don't know, not that, maybe like 100 feet or something over the course of the ride, but I do notice it. The other is that 99 West is not really a great road to bicycle on. Luckily, I won't be on it all day. It's pretty safe because I have a shoulder, but it is loud. Another thing about today, one thing is obvious, it's a clear day. Just a few wispy clouds in the sky. The other thing though, it is cool, but not too cold, not bitterly cold, but cold enough that I'm not going to get dehydrated. I think the high temperature is going to be like 10 Celsius, 50 Fahrenheit. So this is pretty ideal conditions, with the exception of it's still the middle of February, so it's still getting dark early, which is why I'm pushing myself, because I still have a ways to go. Side note, we came to this bridge in the past, and in the past it was closed, and it looks like they're repairing it. I'd like to inspect it, but I have places to go. This is Monroe. I've been here before. I was planning to stop and rest here, get a drink, but I'm pretty well hydrated, still have food, and I'm 15 minutes behind schedule and then 10 minutes left, 10 minutes late. So my time today, I am a little bit nervous about it. I think I'll be okay, but I do want to keep moving. And I've shown Monroe before, so this is what we'll see today, I guess. This is the Long Tom River. Like many rivers in the Willamette Valley, it's high but not too high, and there is a heron. So now it can be told, 8 miles to Junction City. As we remember, I previously walked everywhere from here to Portland and from Junction City to Eugene. So the goal of today is to close that last part on foot. It'll be an 8-mile walk. Only a small part of that walk will be along 99 West. I will be on a much nicer road very soon, and I'll talk about it more then. This is Holbert Lake Road. This is a road that should be very quiet, that I'm going to turn off on and walk this way. And as is often the case, even though I looked at it on a map and I thought I knew how much the distance was, the distance between Monroe and here was a little bit more than I thought. Like I said, 99 West, not really a fun road to walk. But this should be really nice, and so now I'm pretty much just gonna chill out for a while. Right now, it's 1:10 p.m. On my schedule, I was supposed to be in Junction City about 3. As it is now, I think I have 7 more miles to go there on foot in a little bit less than 2 hours. At a walking pace of 4 miles per hour, which is a pretty good walking pace, that wouldn't be hard. At 3 miles per hour, which is a little bit more realistic as I start to get tired, that's kind of pushing it. And when you're in February, the difference between 10 and 15 minutes is the difference between it being dark before I get back to Corvallis or not. Up ahead, there's a red-tailed hawk on top of a telephone pole, which is usually where you see them. I've seen a lot of the red-tailed hawks today. I think they're getting a little bit more active because there's more sunshine and more stuff going on. And of course, they're year-round, but like as it gets into spring, they are going to be more common. And it's probably going to fly away when I get close to it. I keep telling myself I will stop and get some fluid, eat some food. It's 1 o'clock and I've gone 20 miles and I have only eaten a candy bar, so I probably should eat some food. There's that red-tailed hawk. Oh, there's two of them. One thing, you know, when you're bicycling or walking, drink before you're thirsty, eat before you're hungry, rest before you're exhausted. So this looks like right here I have a little place where I can get to the side of the road and eat. This is interesting. In the distance, this is Mary's Peak. And from here it actually looks like a peak. Usually from Corvallis it just looks like a mountain, but here you can see like it has a more traditional peak shape. So I thought that was interesting. It's nice that I've gone far enough that the terrain has actually changed like that. And secondly, we are crossing the border into Lane County, which is still a nuclear-free zone. Any silos we see will just be for grain, presumably. And also notice this, that the median strip disappears here because we are beginning county maintenance and also ending county maintenance. So Lane County, I guess, does not have time or effort to paint a median strip here. And it looks like the road actually also maybe narrows a little bit, which is both good and bad for me. This will also be the first time that I've put Lane County into logic. This will be the first time I've crossed over this walking as such. So that's really exciting, and then I'll just continue on for a couple more miles. So as I've been walking down these roads, I've taken a couple of pictures of bucolic barns backlit by a blue sky, and I'm going to use one of them maybe for a thumbnail, and this is another great example of that. So this is milepost 2, so it's been 2 miles since I turned on the road and it just kind of went right by. And that's because there's been no traffic. About half an hour since I turned off of 99 West, no traffic. So 2 miles on a country road with no traffic, very restful, just kind of sink into a trance. Very different than when trucks are whizzing by you at 50 miles per hour. And here on our left, this is Holbert Lake. This is why it's called Holbert Lake Road. And as it is, it looks more like a slough or a creek. It's long and narrow. And I imagine that before the Willamette Valley project, before the series of dams in the Willamette Valley, like we saw in Sweet Home, before that was here, this was probably a side channel of the Long Tom River, and it was probably very liable to flooding. And so all of this would have been regular wetland, and the lake probably shifted where it was. It was probably more like a series of marshes. That would be my guess. I'm not an expert. And so this farmland exists because this lake has kind of been contained. That would be my guess. And I wish I could see more of the lake. It's kind of hidden by trees on the left. Another thing to notice, that while you know, this entire walking project is kind of my own little project that maybe not most people would do. If you are in the Eugene area and you're looking for just a nice like weekend ride on a nice road, really well paved, smooth, but no traffic, probably really easy if you can get to Junction City just to come and ride on this road. Here's some sheep. Interesting point, you do see sheep in Oregon. It's actually pretty good climate and terrain for them, But mostly when I see them, it's almost like in like a hobby farm sense like this. I mean, there's 6 or 7 sheep here, so probably this isn't commercial. And I don't know why that is that really in my experience in Oregon, yeah, there's not, sheep, wool are not commercial, even though the climate here is exactly the same as New Zealand. One thing of interest for me, it is starting to get warm, starting to get sunny, and usually about this time of year you'll see the first hardy plants sprouting out of the ground or the hardy trees leafing, such as osoberry, which is in the apple family, the rose family, and usually like it grows in the undergrowth like here, and usually around this time of year, yeah, you would see the first like little buds coming out on the osoberry. But I can't see any of that today. Maybe I just haven't been looking closely enough. Or maybe I just have to wait a week and then it would be happening. It's a clear enough day that in the distance in the Cascades, we can see a volcano. That's probably Mount Jefferson, but that could be one of the sisters. I'm not sure. It's kind of hard to tell because it's very far away and it's kind of obscured. And here, no volcanoes on my way. So over there, we can see some very large silos or containers, barns of some sort. I don't know what they are yet, but you can see them next to the trees. You can see how big they are. And I made this point before, a lot of the agriculture in the Willamette Valley, in my home county of Benton County, and here in Lane County is very large scale. Not a family farm, not an old couple, you know, farming the land. It is big business. And of course there's an entire issue about, you know, that, you know, there's issues like economy of scale versus personal participation, which I'm not going to get into all of that right now, but it is something to take note of. Stop ahead, and there's an intersection up there, and there's one of 2 intersections we're going to turn left, and that's where I'm going to stop and check my phone to see if it's this one or the next one. I kind of forgot. But then we'll be turning left, and it should be pretty close to Junction City from there. One other thing to mention, to remember, is I'm walking my bicycle all this way. Actually, right now I'm doing it with my left hand. Normally I would be doing it with my right hand, but I'm using my right hand to hold the camera. That's not exactly excruciating, but after 1 or 2 hours, that puts a lot of pressure on the wrist and stuff. So it is more exercise. And all of this that I'm doing, you know, it's fun that I'm getting to see something, getting to complete this walk. But if you want to do something like this and you live in a place where you can do it other ways than riding a bicycle and then walking a bicycle, this is not the best way to do it. Okay, earlier I might have been wrong about something because I was looking at this symmetrical peak and saying that was Mary's Peak. But if we look over to the right, we have this, and that actually might be Mary's Peak. So I was wrong about something earlier. Interesting. I don't know what the mountain to the left is then, or the peak to the left. It wasn't that intersection. The next crossroads, more crossroads than an intersection. 2 things. One is that I'm kind of reaching the point in my trip where I'm starting to get tired, and no matter how much, you know, the trip is meaningful, is fun in places, you know, there does come a point in any trip, no matter how much fun it is, that you're like, okay, why did I do that? I want to be going home. That's just part of it. And that's kind of related to, like I said, the weather today started out pretty cool, but by now, you know, after doing all this exercise, I am getting actually warm, even though it's still like maybe 50 Fahrenheit out. And there's a third thing that's related to that, which is the terrain here. You know, towards Corvallis, it was more like these kind of rolling hills. Here, it's kind of got a little bit more flatter and plainer. It's just this straight road with these telephone poles. So that's another thing. It's kind of, you know, taking away from the aesthetics of it all. Which, like I said, every trip, no matter how great, has a point where you're like getting bored. It's kind of blah, you're tired. Yeah, it's just part of it. There's a truck going by. Since I passed the intersection, this road has gotten a little bit more busy. It's also no longer Holbert Lake Road. When I was on Holbert Lake Road, though, I was on it for almost an hour, and I saw, I think, 3 cars past me. One of them was a mail truck that passed me coming and going. Maybe it was 4. I can't count. And that's interesting because if you do the math on that, 3 or 4 cars in an hour, that averages out to about 100 cars a day. Maybe a little bit more if they, you know, are traveling more in rush hour, or maybe a little bit less because, you know, some of that time is nighttime when there's no cars at all. And it's interesting because I live in Corvallis where the buses are free, and I visited Eugene last week, also in Lane County where I am now, and it's interesting how people look at transit and transit costs differently because, you know, if you have a 5-mile long paved road and you have 100 cars a day, do people look at that differently than they look at, say, a free bus system where, you know, a bus might carry several hundred passengers a day, might even carry 20 or 30 passengers in one trip? And how do people look at subsidizing a road with very few passengers versus subsidizing a bus line that might not have a lot of passengers but still might have more than the road? So that's a complicated question. And also, I mean, I'm not complaining because these nice, smooth, well-maintained roads are making my day a lot easier, but it is something to think about. Well, I just noticed this. That's a pretty distinctive water tower, so that's Junction City right there. I actually noticed this line of houses here first, so it's hard to tell when you're actually on the road, but it looks like I'm not too far from Junction City and I'm not too far behind schedule. So I'll be there soon, and then I'm going to turn around and bicycle back. I've misidentified a lot of things today. I think those are the sisters, though. Earlier I thought that maybe I was looking at the sisters, but I was mostly looking at Mount Jefferson there. But these mountains look like they would be directly east of Eugene, so I think those are the sisters. But hopefully I've demonstrated that identifying the world around us is a process, not a matter of absolute knowledge. Important philosophical point. This is where I'm turning, and we have this lucky sign here, 1-lane road. That's a much easier road to walk down than a 2-lane road, hopefully. One thing about walks like this is, like I said last week, sometimes I just feel lost in the moment. The miles and the hours just go by. It's almost like a trance. And sometimes I don't get that way, and a lot of times that's because I'm a little bit afraid. But the contradiction there is that the limitation, the fact that I know I can't see it all, that I have to hurry, that I could be late, worried about the dark, all of those things, while they kind of distract, they also make it meaningful because I know this is kind of an adventure and that I'm under pressure and that it is difficult to do this. So that's like what kind of makes me forget and makes me remember my surroundings. Hope that's not too philosophical. So the worst part of these walks is usually where I am right now, where I'm close enough to a city that there's more traffic, but not close enough that there's sidewalks. We're in Junction City. I'm in a hurry, a little bit worried. Want to make a point though. I actually saw these on Google Maps when I was planning my route. A lot of housing going on around the Willamette Valley, including in smaller towns, and we have these big old apartment buildings that look pretty new. One aspect though when people speak about housing density, to me, the key aspect is not how close the houses are to each other, it's how close they are to services and employment and what have you. So here in Junction City, there's probably at a certain point going to be a limit to employment and services. So most of these people, if you put in a lot of this dense housing, are still going to be ending up commuting to Eugene to work. And when one or two people do that, it doesn't matter. But 99 between Junction City and Eugene is still mostly a country road, and there's some country intersections. So you can, you know, create housing in smaller towns by putting in dense housing like this. But then what happens is you have to put in a lot of traffic signals, widen a lot of intersections, and so on. And people are still going to have a hard time commuting. So, you know, without transit or without a lot of employment or services in the city that are close, dense housing, you know, multifamily buildings and stuff that might not serve the purpose that people think it does. However, I'm kind of late, so I don't really have time to think about all the aspects of housing because I need to get here and then turn around. So if I'm correct, it's just on the other side of the intersection where I left off when I went from Junction City to North Eugene. And I could cheat by starting from here, but I'm actually gonna go around this, and annoyingly, I have to take 3 turns that I cannot fully appreciate because it took me 5.5 hours to get here, and I have to figure out how to get home in 3 hours. Well, I won't be walking, and I have some other tricks. And I also need to get more caffeine, more hydration. So this is my secret technique to getting back faster is I'm going down country roads on the way back. Well, I'm bicycling down them, and that at least seems to be faster, and it sure feels better, less stress when I'm not like dealing with traffic. The downside of that is I really hope that Google Maps is right, that these roads go where they say they do, because if I get going down a gravel one-way road that's going to dead end somewhere, I'm in trouble. I also need to get some food so I don't bonk, because if I bonk, I'm going to be in trouble. And that's interesting because it kind of changes the way that people normally think about food, where I don't know, the US RDA is 2,000 calories a day, and right now I'm thinking, how quickly can I chew and swallow 1,000 calories? And I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to go this way. So there is kind of a zigzag that I hope is not too much. A lot of hazelnut orchard through here, a common and lucrative crop in the Willamette Valley. This is Norriton Road. I believe this is the road I took when I went to Lancaster and through Harrisburg a year and a half ago. And it's a little bit busier than the road I was on, I think, a little bit of a more main road, but hopefully it's still going to be quiet. Here's a llama or an alpaca in a field. I should know the difference. I lived in Chile. And those are not unusual to see around here, but usually when I see them, they're either pets near a house or they're tending a flock of sheep. This one's unusual because, as far as I can tell, it's alone and they're usually social. They're also pretty wary of people and everything else, so he's walking away from me. Not afraid of me, just doesn't want to bother. Anyway, that's a short pause, but I'm continuing on my way. This is something I find a little bit unusual, that around here, especially on this road, a lot of really good old classic houses looking from the late 1800s, and then next to them you have full-size industrial sheet metal like warehouses. Agriculture here is not a small business. A lot of the crops grown here are very labor and machinery intensive, but also have a good return. So yeah, it is cute little farmhouses, but then it's full industry next to them. Okay, well, I'm going to keep going. I'm kind of still late. So I'm following this road to rejoin 99 West. I'll be rejoining it north of Monroe. Around Monroe, there's a part where the road gets really unpleasant, narrow shoulder, lots of traffic, lots of curves, and hopefully I'll be skipping that. And I have 30 minutes till sundown, and then probably another 30 minutes. One of my tricks is I don't have to get all the way home. I just have to get to South Corvallis, where I will have sidewalks, and if it's too dark to ride my bicycle, I can then walk. I believe this is the Long Tom River I'm crossing. Don't quote me on that. We've seen me misidentify a lot of stuff today. So I'll make a final point pretty succinctly, because I'm out of time, or what passes for succinctly for me. So the exact thing I'm doing, you know, walking between towns on little country roads, that isn't exactly the point. The point for me is that I want to look at my community, or the communities I live in, as connected. And a lot of times people don't on a macro scale. You know, in the United States, we have a lot of this urban-rural divide talk. And in Oregon, you know, I talk to people from Portland and they think Salem is like at the South Pole. So really the idea is to kind of see how both, you know, the urban and rural world, the social and natural worlds, see how all of that is connected. And my exact mechanism is, you know, now I've seen it all connected on foot. I think that helps me. Other people might want to make that connection in different ways, or might have other priorities. But for me, even though, you know, truthfully, like, you know, when I'm walking down these country roads, when I was walking down these country roads, it wouldn't have made that much difference if I'd gotten on my bicycle and slowly pedaled. But for me, like, there is a symbolic importance, and I feel like I've done something important today. And, wow, I'm tired. I need to get home. That sun is closer to the horizon than I want it to be. I'm setting like a little mini goal for myself. I want to reach Greenberry before the sun is below the horizon. Don't really know how far it is. It might be on that sign, but there's too much glare to read it. But then I'll still have a half hour of light. Well, talking isn't helping, so time to go. I'm in Greenberry. Looks like the sun is below the horizon. It's still light out. I have 8 miles to Corvallis, which is probably 5 miles to where the town starts. Don't do what I'm doing right now. Plan a little bit better, please. We have a street light. We have a sidewalk. Mission accomplished. So one thing about trip planning is it's easy to be optimistic and forget about the little nickel and dimes that will occur when you're on a bicycle or on foot. My estimation of how fast I can bicycle on an open road is not bad. Took me about 2 hours to get here from Junction City. Maybe a little bit more, maybe I'm bad at math right now. Anyway, the real hitch was a lot of times I was traveling in places with a little bit worse of conditions, and I just went a little bit slower, and a lot of 5, 10, or 15 minute delays added up, so I'm about in here an hour later than I wanted to be. And you know, I have big plans this year. I want to go a lot of places, and sometimes I have to take risks. I don't want to put myself and other people in danger. Today I should have been smarter. Could have left the house 20 minutes earlier. Whatever. Anyway, on the other hand, you know, the part I'm proud of is I've now walked everywhere from Portland to Eugene, actually Battleground Lake State Park to Springfield. I don't know how many people have ever done that before. I'm sure somebody must have done it in the past 10,000 years. But it's still, you know, I'm pretty glad about that. And wow, for anybody watching this, is just like a tired person stumbling in the dark. I'm glad I did this. I will plan differently. Next big plan is in a little while, and there will be other little stuff between now and then. So thank you for watching, especially this part where it's just headlights in a dark sky. I'm in downtown Corvallis. 6:50 p.m. I left at 10 a.m. So almost 9 hours out. And I'm basically walking it off now. Even though it would be nice to get home a little bit earlier, I've noticed after a bicycle ride, if the last half mile or so when I get home, you know, walk, use my muscles in a different way than how I've been using them on the bicycle. Corvallis feels different at night. Along with the other reasons I've talked about doing trips like this, one thing is, you know, I go out, see different stuff, and I come back to my own hometown, such as it is, and everything looks different. So it's kind of this combination of comforting and eerie to be walking through downtown Corvallis. It's not even late at night, it's 7 o'clock, but it feels, wow, big and echoey. So when you see things, everything else you see differently. Okay, now I'm finally really signing off.